Man, I just made some good points there too. Alrighty, back in business. Take 2. So one of the things I was noting about this particular matchup is that there's a huge comp difference in that they have a lot of heavies and you've got a lot of tank destroyers, which gives them a pretty significant health advantage. Your channel. And what's interesting about that is that you don't see these types of comps very often, but it's what I was saying is that it's not really that bad on Ensk because the tank destroyers can actually cover through these lanes pretty well if they go through that side. So it's not nearly as much of a handicap as you might think, except for the fact that you're at a health disadvantage. So typically what I'll try to do in a medium in this type of situation is play through this middle area here so that you can put some flanking pressure on through there so that their heavies can't just proceed forward in an unimpeded fashion. But it's very important to see how your guys, particularly how your tank destroyers move out. Apparently they're drag racing outside my house. So as you head out to this area, I would take a peek. Driving towards the red line there, not super. Okay, and so you're going out towards this field, which I don't necessarily think is a super strong play, but particularly when your comp is like this. If your whole team is going out here, though, then so be it. You do want to try to clear through it relatively quickly because you have to understand that they've got a heavy comp, but they also have a slow comp. Like their fastest tank is the Cromwell, and he's in that city over there. So if you do come out here, and this is sort of a bad split for this comp because you've got half of your team here, although they didn't move forward, which is technically good. You got half of your team out here, but so you have these guys are in the back. That's not really going to be helpful, and you need to understand that you need to be aggressive here, not just because of the comp, but because it's a sort of a limited time offer in terms of how much speed they're going to have. That's a very excellent track. You don't need to move too far forward here because you don't want to block the shots of your teammates behind you. You want to allow them to help you. Otherwise, this bulldog is going to be able to get a flip out on you, like she did, and that's gonna hurt you a lot, right? You lost 750 health to that bulldog when you really didn't need to, right? You could have just as easily been behind on this building right here. Let your teammates help you, and you would have a lot more health. You do need to push this guy though, which is going to be slightly more painful because you're not going to be able to watch out. And so you are being aggressive here, which is fantastic, but being aggressive is not enough, right? You also have to play smart, which is you have to get your teammates involved. That's a large part of this game. And so the interesting thing is that you guys have cleared through here in a relatively quick fashion. They are pushing through here, which is why I was talking about it earlier. Having some tanks up here, prevents these guys from, or puts some pressure on those guys in terms of playing through that side. Ensk is not really a map that you can cap out on very easily, even with these slow guys here. You will get shots on that T-54 Proto down this lane should you choose. The artillery, generally speaking, is not a concern on Ensk. You're not really worried about that. So you're more worried about these guys right here, and your guys are getting melted through here. So again, I don't necessarily feel like chasing down Artie is a good play, because Artie is just not very effective on this map. So is killable. I mean, you need to be careful because that super person can come back and shoot you through that window as well. They haven't really projected out very well, which is good. And then so now, again, goes back to the doctrine that I was saying. There's two basic things. You have to fight for areas of strategic importance, and you have to try to keep guys alive. So at this point, you need to try to figure out how to keep these guys alive over here. Like your tank destroyers are pushing through here. And again, playing through this middle area is highly underrated. It's really effective for if these guys try to get out of this area in either direction. You don't want to take these guys on frontally. if at all possible. But you do need to keep your gun active. See how this 252 is pushing your tank destroyers. That's not too big of a deal. You guys can potentially deal with that. But you want to start catching these guys into areas where you can get some shots out. And then this is a situation where you can almost ignore this Tiger P, right? And you need to put pressure on these guys over here. Again, it's this idea that where you need to try to save your boys. Like the Tiger P isn't the one that's pushing your guys over here. The Tiger P is essentially ineffective. Although your Bulldog pushed into him now, and you're driving away. So that's not so good. And again, what I was saying is that it would have been better for you to just drive over here and get shots onto the back side of these guys over there instead. And again, this is a sort of a time limit offer because these guys are going to come back. So you need to be effective here and go back to an earlier point. This is where it would be nice to have a little bit more health. You could have taken that Bulldog down and had 500 more health. You do need to take a risk here. Just do it. Just do it, man. You don't want to wait. You don't want to wait. Just get it done. Get after it. Oh, so close. You do need to press. Again, you have to be a little aggressive here. You should be able to get a shot on the defender. Shoot him through that drive wheel. You didn't need to wait quite that long to shoot him there. And then you just want to push that guy. Oh man. Drive wheel again. So tense. You actually want to have your gun in the center position here because the 3601 is going to come on that side and you basically watch that guy. You can push forward here because he's pushed out. Again, you're just waiting for the super pershing at this point, so you need to be careful about how you play this. Angling is not really going to help you against this guy. You're more worried about 3601. You could technically drive away from him if you wanted. You just don't want to waste too much time because you are on the clock here. And again, I would have my gun in more of a central position. As this guy presses, you cross path. And then at this point you can just bail on the 3601. You don't need to actually chase him down. You can just turn around and leave. Excellent. And again, I will point out this would be so fantastic if you had a little more help. Let's go. I don't think the 304 is fast enough to outrun the T26E4. No, you don't. You can completely ignore this guy. You need to try to save your boy. Although at least your boy looks like he's running now, so that's a good sign. Well, it's kind of a sketchy shot, but it worked. Okay, and then so now what you need to be able to do is put some pressure on. So I actually would go towards the 304. You want to get actually reasonably close to him. So the T26E4 can still push you frontally. If you guys both got on cap, it would be kind of a hard, a difficult play for him. Your 304 is spotting for you, and again, so this is a situation. Well, not spot very well. This is a situation where when you've got two tanks against one tank, you typically want to be closer to him. This is not a very good map for ranging here. You can't really do it that well from either side. So what you want to be able to do is just sort of try to find an area where you can whittle them down. And we'll go back to this old favorite, which is, wouldn't it be nice if you just had like 500 more health or something right now? Or we're at least just not two-shot. So you do need to poke into him at some point. There's no place on this map where you can go where you can spot him and he can't spot you. Unless, you know, he's got like a 50% crew in there or something. it's just too small of a map for that. So you're not reliant upon your range at this point. You're just looking to poke into one area, get a shot, get a quick shot. Like you should turn your gun to the left here, poke out here. If he's there, get your shot, and then pull back. And then just, you need to relocate. No, relocate, my man. Oh, you missed. You can shoot him in the side there, yeah. And then present a little bit. That's a little bit too much. I would actually maneuver out of this position a little bit. He's not a super awesome player, so relocating, you know, it's like object permanence is not a strong suit. Although it looks like he's coming off the cap, so that's something you need to be aware of. You can't actually, you're not actually falling off the super there. And again, this is where relocating is good, even if it's, you know, just to one side or the other. And then you don't want to creep here necessarily. I don't think going back to the same well will be good. You do need to get a reset now. And then again, you don't need to deal damage, you just need to hit him in the track to reset. Oh. And at this point, you should just push up. You need to just push up, because you can't... You need to take the chance that he's going to miss a shot and then get a circle on him. That's basically your... Yeah, at that point, it would have been better to close the distance, just because you're not, the problem with Ensk is that you're not going to be able to outrange him. Your team actually did fairly well there. I thought that you guys, you certainly could have been more efficient out in the field, but at least you were fast, right? At least you were aggressive. I just think you needed to be a little bit smarter, particularly on that Bulldog. I felt like you did need to push that M6, and that's a necessary evil, where you have to take a shot of damage from that M6 to clear out that side, so that you could get your team to continue through. And then your team actually continued through pretty well. I don't feel like it was necessary to come over here to try to track down artillery. Artillery's not super effective on Ensk. I felt like it would have been more effective to try to keep your guys, as they were entering through here, try to keep those guys alive with dealing flanking damage. And one of the really underrated places to play is down this middle area here, particularly as these guys try to cross through these areas over here, and try to press out from where your guys were. This middle area is actually really good to be effective in terms of contain, right? Because that means that, like, that defender and that what was the other tank that was over here, the 3601, can't sit in this lane here where they were basically challenging against your tank destroyers, because you can just sit here and snipe them in the back, so they have to back out of there. That also lights for your artillery who's out in the field, etc., etc., etc. So I felt like that probably would have been the difference in the game. But your team actually played that fairly well. And then when at the end, when it's just you against the T26E4, there's not a whole lot that you can do, unfortunately, on Ensk, like I said, because it is a short map. But you do want to try to relocate as much as possible. You know, like when you get that initial reset, you know, you have time to come and relocate all the way over to you know, this side and come down through here, for example, or, you know, just give him a different look. And generally, players that aren't very good struggle with that. Like, once you disappear from the map, they don't really know where you go, and so relocating is generally pretty good at that. And when you have those two people left, right? Like, your 304 shouldn't have tried to light the super Pershing. That wasn't totally necessary. When you have two people left, all you have to do is you need to get closer together. And if he decides to get on cap, then you both get on cap. And if he decides to pursue you, then you can figure out how you're going to attack him. Oh man, we're getting some server chokeage. Alright, so anyways, if we look at the stats. Again, your team did fairly well for having a pretty significant health disadvantage, but the Ensk is a map where that type of disadvantage is at least slightly minimized, and so that's good. You did a good amount of damage, which is nice, and you were reasonably. I mean, you were aggressive, which is good. I think it's just important to sort of prioritize. You know, I always think of it. There's two sort of aspects to the game. There's sometimes your team is just completely hammering the other team, and you just got to relax and let it happen. And sometimes the enemy team is hammering your team, and you got to figure out, how do I stop the bleeding? And this was really one of those games where you should have spent more time trying to figure out how to stop the bleeding, particularly for your guys that were still in the town, or as your tank destroyers pushed in, rather than, oh, I should just chase down these tanks on the outside. It's more about preserving your teammates in that sense. But I felt like you overall played it fairly well. It sucks to lose those games. But GG, nice try. Alright, so, alright, looks like it didn't die completely. So we'll keep going until it dies, or I run out of replays. So the next one will be Bob's E25. Alrighty, top tier E25 platoon, north side. They've got a lot of tank destroyers too, so that's good for you. So and it's encounter, so that's actually doubly good for you. So the best place to set up with the tank destroyers initial spot or initial position is along this line right here, because you can get shots at their guys as they come through the middle, and the further north they go, the sort of further south you go, and you'll get better shots on them. And generally playing the middle from the north is not a good idea. You'll see a lot of players do it. It's not generally profitable by any stretch of the imagination. You'll also see a lot of tank destroyers set up on this ridge right here, which is not necessarily profitable as well. You might get some initial shots, but it's really, really easy to counter this position, although people don't really understand that. So you have to understand that you can get wrecked here. And if I am, you know, in a light tank on the other team, or, you know, if you get lit over here, there's nothing that you can do to stop me from killing you.
Wirkungstreffer! Der ging voll durch ihre Panzerung.
You are getting that early damage though, and that's good. That's nice. Pretty great. You want to? There's also, you have to understand that there's another cross right here that if they continue driving through, you can get shots there as well. So it's not just that you can get shots right there, you can get shots right there. Like on the KV2's crossing right now, you can get shots out of it. Look at him. You'll see a lot of people play up here as well. Again, this is an area that I can counter pretty easily, so you don't want to be in this on this hill. You have done your team has done a lot of early damage, which is good. You've taken some losses on these guys that move into that center area, but you'll see that a lot. And so not bad. I mean, your team actually traded reasonably well there. Again, as I was saying, it's just that people don't understand why, but that's a very precarious position. And then once they're in the city, playing this position is actually not really that useful. There's a slim alley where you can shoot back on the side of that church, but otherwise it's not really meaningful. Where that AT-7 is not really important to the outcome of the game either. You're more worried about the guys in the city than this AT-7 that's out in this field. Your guys are pressing on this IS here, which is fantastic, if you want to see. You know, this is what we were talking about earlier when I was playing that UDES game, where I had a lot of targets to shoot at, but I wasn't really helping my team win the game. That's sort of what I feel like you're doing right now. Again, don't forget, there's a diamond. A little bit higher, but okay. Unfortunately, that IS survived. Your team was not able to do it. And again, that's what I was saying, is that if you were there to help those guys, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have done as much damage out here, but that's important to the outcome of the game. Being able to win that battle, or at the very least not lose that many tanks there, would have helped your team significantly. So it's not always about doing damage, it's about, you know, when you do that damage and to what tanks do you do that damage. That was an excellent track. Oh, get him in the track again. And then you really want to get out of the middle. The middle does not really, I mean, they've been driving into you, but the middle does not really project that well. You do need to try to push this guy here, and particularly like when you have a full health E25 and this is an E25, you could probably solo that guy. You're not really worried about this one guy. And again, this is not a good position to be spotted in. It's not a good position for him either. Which is like, generally speaking, it's not like super profitable to play through that middle, particularly as the game wears on. Again, you still have an opportunity to push out here. The guys that are in the valley are inconsequential. There's no reason to play the valley. This is where the team goal is. You want to play towards the team goal whenever possible, especially when you have, you know, your buddy out there who also has full health. Like, there's no reason why you guys can't push a single T1 heavy over here. You're in tier 7 tanks that have good DPM. So covering so again, this is sort of, you know, when we're talking about insignificant damage, like these guys are not really the threat to your team. You have an opportunity where you can win through that east side. These guys are meaningless. I mean, they're not doing anything, which is really going to be a problem. So go back to this idea where the damage that you do, how you project, is actually really important to the outcome of the game. You need to be able to damage tanks that are hurting your team. Damaging tanks that aren't doing anything, that are camping in the back, that's suddenly a lot less significant. And again, this is something where you guys, either one of you, individually could push this T1 heavy. Although he can also back up. Excellent. And then now I would just push the cap. That was probably not what you wanted to do. Like, there's zero reason for you to protect this valley. And so see how you're working opposite of your teammate? You guys should try to find some way to work together. You never want to work as, you know, whenever you see platoons of people, you always want to ostensibly at least be shooting at the same tanks, if not at the very least covering. But you spent a lot of this game doing inconsequential damage, which has not really helped your team at all. Those guys were not going to sort of break this side. The AT-7 is actually in a position where you can shoot him from here, but again, you have to understand that it's very easy for him to get away from you as well. And then pushing down this middle is actually not going to be very productive. You'd rather actually go back towards your buddy and help him out. Again, this middle is probably the most overplayed area on this map. Unfortunately, your buddy did die. So you will, the AT-7 will eventually get back on cap, and so you just need to figure out how you're going to deal with that. You need to just try to make this guy miss. That's basically the way it works out. You don't really have any other choice.
Los geht's. Der ging voll durch ihre Panzerung. Wirkungstreffer. Der ging voll durch ihre Panzerung ausgeschaltet. Das war's für uns.
Oh well. Alright, so a number of things. So you guys played through this middle here, which on most pub maps, or most pub matches is fine, but in any organized play, you're going to get wrecked. And if anybody knows how to, anybody on the opposite team knows how to play the lake, you're going to get wrecked. And so that's why it's difficult to play through that middle. You did get a lot of shots on their team, which is fantastic, but you guys hung out there just far too long. They pushed through the cap. Your guys actually had that IS in a bad position when they were flanking, but they just weren't able to kill him. And basically that was the end of the game. So it goes back to what I was saying, you know, about that round that I had earlier tonight, where I was doing a lot of inconsequential damage. And yeah, I mean, sure, the damage meter goes up, but if you're not actually affecting the outcome of the game, you always have to be cognizant of that. And you spent too much time in this middle here, and then for inexplicable reasons, when you still had, you know, basically were at full health, you came back over here to cover the valley. When your buddy was over here, you have this window where you guys could have just literally broken the town, just completely broken it, and then just sat on cap and just forced them to feed you. But that's not how you guys played it. And when we go back to playing in platoons is it's important to actually have some sort of teamwork, and you don't necessarily need to be in voice communication, although that's nice. You just need to be able to say, hey, come over here and help me, or not even need to say it. You need to every so often look and see what your friends are doing and be like, okay, should I be helping them right now? What should I be doing? Like, there's very little reason to cover this middle here, I'm sorry, the valley here, when you had an opportunity to win the other side. There's very little reason to split up your forces, whether it's platoon or otherwise, to be like, okay, I'll handle this 1v4, you handle that 1v4, and if we both pull off our 1v4s, we win the game. No, that's not how you play it. You send both people to one side, you do a 2v4. If you win that 2v4, then okay, let's go win the other 2v4. You don't try to maximize your odds by saying, okay, well, let's just make two ridiculously impossible things happen, and then we got this game. So, in my opinion, if you just had some communication there where you're just like, oh, hey, I'll come over there on that side and let's clear that out, then you guys could have done that. You did excellent damage. Your boy spent too much time in the middle and got himself killed, but that'll happen. E25 is not a very good scouting tank, contrary to many people's belief. But, I mean, you shot pretty well. Again, to me, it felt like a lot of that damage was going out as your team was losing the game, and it's just like, hey guys, we're losing over here. This is the difference between winning and losing on that east side. And I think it just set you back a little bit too far. But you still had a chance to win though, even after your guys lost that town. If you had moved over, you guys could have pushed the T1 heavy and then ultimately the AT7, because the AT7 did not get there until much later. Um, and you guys would have been able to own that, just between the two of you. But hindsight. GG, nice try. All right, and then we'll look at data links, because why not? Didn't you send me a Emil game on like mines or something to data link? All right, cross your fingers. Back to what we were talking about before in terms of what should we be getting out of these replays, and a lot of it is just this idea that mistakes are made in every single game. Every single game that I play, every single game that everyone plays. The idea is to sort of clean up some things that you might not have noticed, and a lot of times I try to make it a little bit simplistic, which is I break it down to saying, oh, you should try to keep this guy. If you kept this guy alive, then that changes the composition of the game. If you do this, just one small thing. But again, everybody, there's mistakes in every single game, and so when we critique the games, it's not like, oh, you made a mistake. It's there's mistakes in every game, every single game. Even there's probably no such thing as a perfect game where you just like, every decision that I made was the absolute right one, right? So that doesn't exist. So there's always, you have to understand that, and it's not like, oh, I made a mistake, so I'm a bad person. It's, oh, I've made this loss was an accumulation of bad choices, and if I break that chain along at any point along that chain, then the outcome is potentially different. And so it's important to be able to identify like when things start sliding the wrong way, and then be like, oh, if I just had done this, right? And then so ideally, the next time you're in that situation and things are sliding that way, you're just like, okay, like for example in that Lakeville game that we just watched. If when things start sliding that way, it's just like, oh, I should go hook up with my platoon mate. We should do something together, because it's gonna take a heroic effort to win this game. So it's best if we work together than or work to a common goal rather than work to separate ones. And so that's when we, I'm always a little bit concerned that people are taking the criticism too personally, and they shouldn't. Again, like as I was saying, I make mistakes in every single game every single round I play. There's mistakes, so it's just, we're trying to point out I try to point out everything that I see of this decision, that decision, because in my opinion, like especially, and this is one of the reasons why we look at these close games, is that the decision that, you know, just one of those decisions drastically alters the outcome of the game, right? It turns that close loss into a close victory. It turns a close victory into an easy victory, right, or a comfortable one. And so when those things aren't necessarily immediately obvious when you sort of just play through the replays, but if you have, I mean, I've played, you know, 45,000 rounds of this game, and I've probably watched, you know, another 5,000 rounds. So I mean, I have a lot of experience in a lot of these situations, and I know what I'm looking for, and so it's easy for me to point it out. But as I was saying, I still make mistakes in every single game. There's no perfect game, so don't be like, oh man, there's so many things I did wrong. I mean, it's just, that's the way the game is. Well, as I recall, if I'm thinking about Data Link's Ensk game correctly, he was completely fed in that game, so we'll see if he gets fed in this game. Alright, so they've got a slightly faster comp, but that's actually good for you because you're playing this south. You can still control this side reasonably well. If any of your speed tanks go out here, it's really easy to control, but even if they don't, in this type of comp, you should still be able to win the southwest. So typically speaking, for swamp, the south spawn a swamp, southeast spawn a swamp. What you want to be able to do is just win this area, right? And if they push people through here, just start whittling them down. And then you don't want to push through this area. You actually want to come back through this middle area here. And you basically have to do that before you lose this side, and then they do the same thing from north. And again, you are in a platoon, so you do want to try to work together in common goals. And so it's one of those things where, you know, particularly if you're in a platoon with varied tanks, you don't necessarily all need to be right next to each other at the same place doing the exact same thing. The idea is that, hey, I'm gonna go to this southwest, be someplace where you can cover me. Like this Scorpion should get into a place where he, as these guys try to push up here, he can get that shot that's through that lane, right? This guy should come over here and back you up so that when you're on your reload, you're not totally vulnerable, sort of thing. And that's really what you're looking for more than anything else when you play platoons. And if you can, right, you actually want to be the tank that moves out here. If they don't already have their speed tanks through here, which is why I'll typically go around this backside here and then push up to there. And then so depending on how their artillery positions, right, they have to actually move pretty far out here before they start getting shots back here. Like moving into this area, it's okay, but you're not really going to get that good of a shot. You should actually push this guy, because you can actually push up through here. You don't want to sit in this back area here, because this is how you target. Again, a lot of this is just understand what it is that you're afraid of. They haven't pushed their speed tanks in this area. You wanted to get across here without giving artillery time to hone in on your position. And then now is the time to wreck some face. And then so you don't want to push up on this side here. You actually want to stay as close to this hill as possible. Again, there is a potential for Artie to shoot through here if he moved out here. Now it's unlikely. Artillery doesn't move very well in most maps, but you can get this. You can get the exact same, if not better, shots on these guys by playing this side and just shooting through this gap right here, then coming over this hill. That was a nice attempt at a trap, although unnecessary. That guy is moving forward far enough where he's going to get himself killed. And again, the further that you sit back here, the more exposed you are. You actually want to be more up here against this wall right here. You can turn your turret this way. They don't actually have a shot until you move forward. You just don't want to get shot by artillery. Again, you didn't need to drive this far. You actually could have shot that guy from right back here. You kept driving forward to a distance that's unnecessary, and that actually allows him to get shots back at you if you get let here. I would shoot the Pershing. You're going to have a time limited option.
Vi slog igenom pansaret. Träff. God verkan.
Excellent.
Fiendevagn nedkämpad.
And then now the important thing is you to not play through here. All you got to do, you got a huge advantage. All you got to do is come back, right? Make sure that they're not pressing down here, and then push up through this middle once you clear this side out. You don't want to push through this side at all. This is it's just too easy for them to do the exact same thing. You don't want to go drive next to guys like this, guys that you know are lit when there's artillery here, because inadvertently the artillery can hit you. The question is what are you in a rush to do, right? Is there, I mean, are they on your cab? What are they doing? So you got to be careful about situations like that. There's no reason for you to drive next to that guy that you know is lit, that is in an arty lane, because if that arty shoots long, goes right through your engine, your game is over, and you're not even lit. Right? So you have to keep that in mind. Playing through this area right here is bad. You should call your teammates back, but a lot of times that'll happen. See how this guy's moved over here, which is fine. They're pressuring here. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any support over there yet. See how they're pushing down there? It's going to take these guys a while to get into position. They can't actually play through there that well. That was good. You took him down to one shot. That's all that matters. You need to push forward. You need to get out of this position. And so what you need to do is you actually need to be over on this side. See how your team's pushing through here? That's incredibly bad. That Moots is, I'm sorry, that Panzer is not the problem. You want to be able to get that Moots out if you can. I wouldn't worry too much about the T-37. He's going to be able to light you, but that's the brakes. He's been doing that the entire game. You need to chase down that Moots if you can. It's fine. Just take your time. Take your time. Take your time. No, get that last shot on. Take your time. A little sketchy, but and then see how you're scrolling back here. You actually don't want to scroll back. You actually want to move forward there to basically to the north side of this corpse right there, because this is actually an artillery lane that you're backing up through. He doesn't necessarily know that you're reloaded, but again, you are in an artillery lane, so you don't want to sit there. Unfortunately, your team has thrown away the advantage that they had by basically pushing up through that side, which, as we've pointed out many times, is not the way that you want to play this map. Again, you do have very good depression, but you do not want to sit here on this guy. You want to move away. At some point, you can just let them have this side. You can push this guy. Again, you've been in an arty lane this entire time, so that's something you need to keep in mind. You're fine. As long as you can hit that glacius, that's all that matters. You just need to not shoot him in the superstructure. And then again, you want to stay close to this. You keep backing up through arty lanes. And as we've said many times, you got to understand what it is that you're afraid of. This Moots is not a pusher. You do want to get away from him because he is proxy spotting you, not on purpose, but you're allowing it to. You need to get away. But you got lucky. And again, so the window now, right? You've got a window within which to work. Nicely done. You need to get out of this position. So basically in this position you have two shots, right? So let's say that all of these guys sit in their positions. How many shots do you take, right? So what you should do is you should take one shot on one of those guys, and you need to get out. You need to save the other shot in case the only tank that you're really worried about chasing you is the Moots. Like, these other guys aren't going to chase you. But you do need to leave this area for a number of reasons, not just because RD is effective to own it. You do have a window within which you can kill the Moots. And now you can just run like a madman. Run away. Run away. Run away. Run away. Again, if you're in an RD lane, you should not be afraid of the Cheeto. You should be afraid of getting flanked, and you should be afraid of getting hit by RD. Well, it doesn't mean you should point your turret away from him if you don't have to. And then this position is actually fine, right? So unless the artillery moves out there, this is actually not that bad of a position to be in. This will allow you an opportunity to kill the SU, and then again you need to shift away, because otherwise you're basically hoping that they're gonna misplay this. Because that guy's just gonna be able to proxy you, which is fine. I would just go ahead and reload now. So the Cheeto is pushing up behind you, so you need to get out. You need to push one way or the other. It doesn't really matter which. I would actually just push the other way, to be quite honest. Like, wait for the Cheeto and then push out the other way. Force him to chase you. Because pushing out this way is going to make you vulnerable to artillery again. Row. Push it. And then get up here. Right there. There we go. That's already safe, my man. And then you can just take it from this Cheeto. Like, you can just wait him out. Alright, there we go. You've got your window to push him. Because the artillery took an ill-advised shot. And again, I always look and see when the artillery fired so that I know how much time I have. And just make a little mental note. And that's the ball. Artillery could still be loaded in like another 10 seconds or something like that. And then I would just push through the middle here, because that'll give you the most opportunity to see where he's at. Most likely he's on this west side. He might be in that crook there, but most likely he's on that west side, given where that shuttle ended there. Ruh-roh. You had a little window there where you could have shot at him. I understand the that you might not necessarily have needed to. So going around is fine, but I'm just pointing out that there was a little window. GG. Okay, so let's go over what happened on this map really quickly. So you pushed out here, which is fantastic. Again, I think you need a little bit of practice in playing this area here, because there's a lot of shots that you like basically drove up onto hills that you don't really need to. Particularly, one of the nice things about the Swedish tanks, the Swedish heavies, is that they have really good gun depression. They have like 12 degrees of gun depression, so it's really easy to play this and still be already safe and still be reasonably safe from fire from over here, for example. But I thought you did fine here. I mean, again, your team won this side. The south spawn has the advantage to win this side. But then your team's mistake was that they continue pushing through here, which is a huge mistake. And you should have called your platoon mate back. Your Scorpion then pushed out over here sort of by himself. Scorpion is not a really good pushing tank, and that wasn't necessary. You also could have told him to wait for you, because you were coming around that side eventually anyways. And then again, I just felt like you didn't really play arty safe for a lot of that game, and that has to be an important focus for not just you, but for everybody. It's like understanding, you know, am I safe or am I not safe? And, you know, is what's a bigger threat to me right this instant? Is it, you know, that this Indian Panzer, or is it something else? You know, or am I getting pushed by 1 tank? Am I getting pushed by 3 tanks? Am I getting pushed by 0 tanks? And sort of understanding that is important. But it sort of ended up working out for you, because it was essentially a series of 1v1s where you had a clip, and they were kind enough to not push you together. Like, for example, if that Cheeto and the JP just stayed together and they just pushed you at the same time from the same side, right, and just pushed into you, your game is over. Like, you have to understand that that you benefited from the fact that they split up and it took so much time for them to get around, and you could get away from that by just basically driving away from one guy. Whereas if they, two tier 7 tanks just, wait, is it Cheeto tier 7? Cheeto's tier 6, right? If just those 2 tanks just simply pushed you from one side, your game is over because you can't kill them both at the same time. And that's sort of the issue that you need to recognize in terms of, okay, I've got multiple tanks approaching me. I need to literally just get away. And that's why I was saying, is like when especially when it was that Indian there, it was, well, that you didn't know that the Yudas was coming, but the Shorn was here. You knew that, I think it was a T-37 that was over here, along with the JP. When you see all those tanks coming, you know that you've got a clip, and you're not going to be able to clip them all out. You need to start formulating that escape plan where you're just like, okay, well, this is how I'm going to scroll out of this one, right? And the Emil's not super fast, but it's reasonably fast where you can basically cut into your reload time, so you can be like half reloaded before they can catch up to you. You did a lot of waiting around, and they kind of accommodated that, which is good. I mean, and that happens a lot of times. People will be afraid of tanks, particularly higher tier tanks, even if they, whether they recognize they're reloading or not. But it's just one of those things where things always have to break your way when at all possible. I mean, that GW Tiger could have theoretically hit a lucky shot on you and could have basically drew the game. But it's I think you want to play to maximize your odds. And so whenever I see that sort of situation where I'm in a clip tank and there's multiple tanks and I know I can't clip them out, I always try to think, okay, what's my escape plan here? What's my end game? How am I going to possibly get out of this if they decide to not just sit back and wait for my reload? Oops, that's not the right button. All right, so if we look at the stats, you did excellently. Your team did not do a whole lot. Again, you were pretty much the hammer on that southwest side, which is good. I mean, that's what you should do. That's why that position is incredibly important. And then you see how difficult it is to continue pushing through that side, which is a mistake that you'll see a lot of puppies make. It's much easier to make sure that you just proceed through the middle, because there's a lot more cover in the middle and a lot more lanes where you can return fire rather than pushing through that west side that your team tried to do. And you should definitely make fun of your platoon mate for trying to do that, because he just got wrecked. And then the other thing is that when you're in platoons, you need to rein people in. Like, you'll see me do this with Miz a lot. So when I play with Miz, not that he's a child, but I know that he's got some, like, he has an attention span that's only so long. So I have to tell him, okay, this is what we're doing. Or I mean, it goes both ways, because if he wants to push someplace, then I'll be like, okay, I'm on my way, give me 15 seconds or whatever. Just don't go for 15 seconds. And like, I felt like if you had just told that to your Scorpion, where you're just like, dude, I'm on the way, just before you push that guy, just give me 20 seconds, and then I can help you. And that's how you sort of keep your platoon mates alive. And you might say, oh, well, it's not on me to tell them to keep themselves alive. I mean, you can tell them, hey, I'm on my way to help you, at the very least. And then they can decide, okay, well, do I wait for him to come and help me or not? And I don't know, maybe you did that and he was just like, yeah, don't worry about it, dude, I got this. And he just got himself wrecked there. I don't know, but I'm just saying that that's one of the other things about platoons, is that you kind of want to not just say, hey, let's do this, but also, okay, I'm on my way to you, or you come to me, and let's do this together. And that's really important. That I mean, you did win this game still, but as we were talking about earlier, it's a difference between a close win and then a comfortable win, where you're just like, oh yeah, we got that, we just completely wiped the floor with them. And so that's another thing that you should also think about. But did spectacular damage, so GG. I am very happy that you won.